Amigas, amigos de 18 minutos, bienvenidos a una nueva edición de nuestro programa que conjuntamente Mundo Ejecutivo, Smart Speakers y A Medir trabajamos con ustedes cada mes, cada 2 semanas, ¿verdad, mi querido Pancho? Exacto. Aquí está conmigo justamente el coconductor y nuestro gran amigo Pancho Rodríguez, CEO y fundador de Smart Speakers. ¿Cómo estás, Pancho?
Bien, encantado de estar contigo, con todos nuestros invitados y con un gran personaje el día de hoy.
Absolutamente, de verdad hoy estamos nuevamente de manteles largos, como ya ha ocurrido. Creo que ya es tradición, Pancho, en nuestro programa. Hoy tenemos a alguien desde California dispuesto a platicar con nosotros. Él es Adamsen y la verdad muy agradecidos con Al en que haya accedido a platicar diferentes temas que yo considero, Pancho, de gran actualidad. Antes de presentarles ya y empezar a platicar con Al, permítanme decirles que Al es un experto en humanizar todo lo que es la experiencia de trabajo, la evolución individual. Él es un gran speaker también, consultor, asesor, alguien que inspira a los grupos a trabajar, sobre todo como equipos de alto desempeño, pero basado sobre todo en ese aspecto humano que hoy la tecnología y el mundo digital están poniendo a prueba. Les quiero presentar a Al. Al, hello, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks to you for accepting our invitation. I'm very pleased to have you here. I have made a very short presentation, an introduction of yourself, but very pleased to have you here. And let's start with something that calls our attention in this, I would say, uncertainty, adverse situation, and constant transformation, change in the world. Why does the future of work matter to you? Why did you choose to focus on this concept?
Thank you for asking. Well, first off, I am a parent of 2 young people. I am the father of a son who's now 22 years old and a daughter who just turned 20 last weekend. And they have given me perspective on their challenges and understanding what to do, what to study. And more broadly, it relates to my profession as a management consultant, as an entrepreneur, in trying to design work and those human beings who are actually going to do the work. In other words, is it employees? Are they contractors? And now we're in this point, what I call the age of perpetual disruption, where we have AI, robotic automation, globalization, all affecting the very nature of work. In other words, what people spend their time doing day in and day out. And I am, frankly, struggling to understand how organizations are preparing themselves and how individuals are preparing themselves. So I really want to help people, whether it be individuals, teams, groups, organizations, understand how they can better prepare, more consciously prepare for the future, as opposed to just talking about it. So that's why I'm passionate about it, and that's why I'm committed to providing insights and ideas to the world.
How do you see the future of work?
The future of work worries me in many respects. I'm not the AI is going to take over the world guy. What I am, however, is very conscious that AI in particular is going to disrupt the activities that people do day in and day out. And that's true of robotic automation and the fact that workers in different countries can do what I as a worker might be doing better, cheaper. And so I have to prepare. And so I don't want this growing inequity that's happening in American society, but really around the world, to perpetuate and exacerbate. And so what is going to disrupt that trend? Our educational processes are going to have to improve. Organizations are going to have to invest in their workers more. And as important as anything is individuals are going to have to take on a greater degree of ownership over how they prepare. And if they don't, they're going to be left behind. So again, what really worries me about the future, and it's not only the future of work in terms of personal fulfillment, it's about livelihood. It's about our ability to provide for our families and enjoy life. And if we don't prepare ourselves consciously, there's heightened risk, not only for us as individuals and families, but for society at large. So this is a very serious issue for all stakeholders. And again, my job is to help shed light on how we can better prepare.
And on that matter, I wonder, and every time I have the opportunity to talk about the business role, talking about the present, but more related to the future, what will you see is the role or the importance for business leaders to embrace the future of work, working from now, building that future, and not only as a responsibility for human resources leaders. It's beyond that, I think. What do you think about that, and why this should be important for business leaders?
Thank you for asking that question, because historically, HR has been relegated to implementing decisions that were made elsewhere by the CEO, CFO, and others, and CIO and CTO. So technology has been a priority. Obviously, financial constraints and decisions are made, and all of a sudden HR is, okay, go reduce the workforce, do a restructuring. And that reactionary way of being is not sustainable, particularly in industries where there's scarce talent. And I use the term high value talent in many respects. So if you are dependent on having high value talent being a source of competitive advantage, and even in more transactional roles, retaining people in scarce talent markets like poll workers and electricians, it's critical that leaders think systematically about the not only employee experience, but the work experience, and plan accordingly. So how is AI, for example, going to disrupt? And AI is coming through the CTO or CIO oftentimes, those technical groups. So at the end of the day, I want to see better governance that's systematic, that involves all these various stakeholders, and in turn, they make decisions that are conscious on how it's going to affect another group. In other words, if you implement technology, how is that going to affect the demand for talent in a particular job family? If we're hiring great people and there's scarce talent, then we certainly want to retain them, keep them engaged, keep them focused on the activities that are going to add value to the organization. If, like, hybrid workplace is a great example, and there's this great movement to come back to the workplace, and it invites the question, for the sake of what? Why are human beings going to actually convene in an office building or at some work site? If it's for a creative purpose and it's unique to the exchange of energy and ideas, then that makes sense. Employers need to earn the commute from the perspective of the workers. Otherwise, they're like, why am I doing this? So that decision on hybrid work and when and if there should be a mandate to come back to the workplace, in my view, needs to be made not only by the chief executive and the COO, but also it needs to involve IT, it needs to involve facilities, it needs to involve HR. And again, doing that at speed, doing that at scale, and doing that in a sustainable way is where we're falling short. Many leaders are in reactionary mode, and we need to get ahead of the problem and be more proactive, more thoughtful, and base our decisions on the data that the employees are generating at that point in time. So there's a bunch of leading practices and articles that are written about this, but leaders are responsible for the people and the system for which they are overseeing at that point in time. And those systems and those people and their desires and needs change. Thus the reason to study that system, to study the workforce, create a communication channel, both directly and with groups and that are higher level. But also at the end of the day, if you're making conscious decisions and the workforce feels heard, feels seen, feels empowered, then good things are going to happen. But that's going to take this systematic approach.
Fantastic.
How should the companies prepare their own employment for the future of work?
Great question. And this is a dilemma. And I often cite this example with coal miners. So around the world, coal has been becoming less and less a source of energy for a variety of reasons, which I won't get into. But you have workers going down in coal mines, and then they come up at the end of the day exhausted, and their jobs sometimes disappear. And it invites the question, is that ethical? You say, well, you worker should have prepared for this disruption in energy. Coal is a declining industry, but you keep going down in that mine every day. You need to learn new skills. You need to develop a different network and find out what's possible. From the worker perspective, that coal miner perspective is, how the heck am I supposed to do that when I'm down in a hole, when I come out exhausted, and I'm just in this small town and I have to get back to work the next day? It's not a realistic idea. And so what has to happen, and what is happening in more progressive organizations, is they're saying, hey, I have to create capacity. I have to resource my workers to prepare for future disruptions so they can be more employable, both within my organization and potentially outside the organization. Again, leaders, if I'm listening to this show, it's like, well, I do not want to invest in people who are going to just leave my organization. Why would I do that? That's a very scarcity mentality, and I do not advocate that. We have to have a more abundant mentality where if I invest in these people, not only are they going to be prepared for the future of work, they are going to go advocate for our organization if they go elsewhere. They're going to be a brand ambassador, in other words, because they can appreciate that they've been invested in by their organization. So the responsibility is not only ethical, it's practical. And the last thing I'll say on this is, if leaders are adopting this approach and understand that these are human beings and not transactional robots that are going and doing the work that can just, okay, that person leaves, it's no big deal, we'll just put in another one. That's not the reality. The reality is, if someone leaves, they have social capital. They're not only doing the job, the task, but they have relationship equity. They have other assets that are valuable to the organization that historically have been grossly underappreciated. And if we invest in them, they're going to be more focused and engaged while they're with the workforce. And when they go, they're going to be a brand ambassador and elevate the brand equity of the organization for which I, as the leader who made that investment, am responsible. So there's a lot of good things that are happening. And what I just shared is not just happy talk. It's been proven time and again. So why we're not doing it at scale, more broadly across companies across the world, I have some comments on that, but it's rooted in the fact that our fiduciary responsibilities, as we define it, needs to change. It's not only about the financial shareholders. We have a social responsibility to our communities, to the environment, to our partners across the gamut. So, I won't go down that path right now, but we need to change some things, and that's the reason we need to understand what we can practically do day to day to prepare ourselves and our organizations for the future of work.
Absolutely, Alan. I think this is a key point, and I would like to emphasize something about business leaders. We know that given the pressures to achieve or exceed the business plan figures, all the environmental issues that we are facing, etc., all the pressures that a very senior leader could have, what will be your recommendation for them to raise awareness about their strengths, their areas of opportunity, to become a much better and effective leader given the times we are facing and the times that are to come. What would you be your recommendation for them?
Leaders have to get together and have the governance structure that enables them to make decisions consciously at speed. That means bringing together facilities, HR, operations, of course, IT, and making sure that they're all aligned and understanding how those key decisions are going to affect one another's functions and also, of course, how it's going to affect the work experience.
Tenemos una gran noticia que Al va a estar en el Congreso de la Medir de este año, que es en septiembre. ¿Cuándo es?
6 y 7 de septiembre, y será un placer. Will be our pleasure to have you in our international conference Al, early September.
Y obviamente es un gran conferencista que también está con Smart Speakers.
Correcto.
I have to say that I'm incredibly honored to be participating. So thank you in advance for having me. I can't wait to get down there to Mexico City.
Thank you for being with us. It was a pleasure. Amigos, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros en 18 minutos. Gracias a la Medir, gracias a Mundo Ejecutivo y a los amigos de Smart Speakers. Hasta luego.